Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
All right, here we go. Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast and brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destination all season long. Wild, Wild West, Tropicana, Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience now at Caesars.com. Andrew DiCecco from InsideTheBirds.com is here for Football at 4 as we take a look at the Eagles and the Saints. We've got that for you live on Sunday right here on 97.3 ESPN. And Andrew joins me now here on Thursday edition of Football at 4. Andrew DiCecco, what's up, my man?
Mike, how's it going?
Everything's good. Getting ready for the game, obviously, and doing a lot more research as we get closer to the week. That's why on Thursday I love having you here because we start to look at the matchups. And I guess the big matchup in this game, the Eagles obviously going over 175 yards rushing, 3 straight games. They've gone over 200 yards rushing in 2 out of 3. They're facing a team that gives up just 72 yards a game on the ground. That's the best in the league. So how's that matchup look to you?
Well, it's going to be tough sledding, Mike, but the Eagles obviously have to stay committed to the formula that has been so successful for them over the past few weeks. Obviously, the Eagles' offensive line, I think, would hold up a little bit better than most teams would, considering just the amount of talent and mass and success that they're having. I think that even though that they have Marcus Davenport, Shai Tuttle, David Onyemata, and Cam Jordan, that's a really, really stout defensive line. I really like the continuity and the push that the Eagles' offensive line has really shown, the dominance that they've really put forth. So I really would expect the Eagles to go to the run early and find some success there. Maybe not, they might not eclipse, they're not going to have the gaping holes that you've seen in past weeks, but I do think that there will be some running room for the 3 runners.
Yeah, I know that the Eagles obviously are very good up front, but what makes the Saints defense so good against the run? Do they have really good personnel up front? Is it scheme? Do teams not try to run on them? Why are they so good against the run?
Well, they're stout in the middle of that defensive line with Shai Tuttle and David Onyemata, and they also have defensive ends like Marcus Davenport and Cam Jordan that are good anchors on the line there. And then the linebacking core, Demario Davis is a downhill player. He's very physical. He can roam sideline to sideline. He has a very well-rounded aspects to his game. So, they're just that front is just very well equipped to do that. They're not considered an undersized bunch, and they're just very aggressive and attack-minded. And I think that that's what sort of has transpired to be a very, stout run defense.
On the outside, I think it's going to be interesting here. You obviously, this is an offense in the Eagles that likes to run the ball, but if they want to take some shots down the field in this game, how do you like the matchups of the corners up against the Eagles, Smith and Watkins, who have done most of the damage? Obviously Rieger hasn't been much of a factor.
Yeah, so it's really interesting, right? Because Marshawn Lattimore will likely see Devontae Smith for much of this game. Marshawn Lattimore is a very complete player, very physical, and he's someone that is prone to getting penalties, and when things don't necessarily go his way, you start to see you saw it with DK Metcalf really scrapping with guys. He's had issues with Mike Evans and players. When things don't go his way, he tends to start to hurt the team more so than help the team. Also, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is another chatty player, chippy player in the secondary that sometimes that works against the Saints. So Devontae Smith's going to be seeing a lot of Marshawn Lattimore, and I think that he will be able to throw him off with his route running, and he's just an elite separator. And I think that Marshawn Lattimore is better with bigger-bodied receivers, and I think as somebody like Devontae will be able to beat him with perhaps a double move and on some quick hitters. And then on the other side, Paulson Adebo, the corner from Stanford, that's a beatable matchup with Quez Watkins. However, Quez Watkins has not been much of a focal point in the offense. Very sporadic production. The Eagles need to find a way to get him on the move, test Paulson Adebo deep, because I think that that's going to be an area that they're going to be able to attack. Now, as far as Jalen Reagor goes, I don't know what you really do. I think an interesting wrinkle would be to utilize Kenny Gainwell perhaps in that slot role and sort of maybe even a little bit more of Greg Ward, because you have to find some production there. Obviously, Jalen Reagor has a lot of athletic ability, but you need to find production, and I think that some of those other options present a little bit more viability at this time.
All right, so what happens if Goddard can't go? How does that limit what the Eagles want to do offensively if they cannot have Goddard be but they don't really have now, I wouldn't say they don't have a receiving tight end. We haven't seen Jackson really get the opportunity, and that's what he is on this roster for, right? They're very intrigued by him as a receiver, but he has really no game experience in doing it. So if Goddard's out, how does that change the dynamics of the Eagle offense?
Yeah, as promising as Tyree Jackson is, he's not going to be, you don't want to throw him in the deep end and say, all right, now you're up and you're going to force feed him suddenly 6 to 8 targets a game. And that's just not feasible. And, I mean, you do have a Richard Rodgers on the practice squad. You do have a Noah Togiai on the practice squad. I would tend to think that Richard Rodgers would get a promotion if Dallas Goedert can't go, based on his veteran experience. I mean, Jack Stoll's not much of a receiver. He's more of a blocker at this point in his career. And that really, in the absence of Goddard, if he can't play, Mike, that's going to really inhibit what the Eagles are able to do on offense, because outside of Devontae Smith, you really don't have a competent pass catcher other than Dallas Goedert. So then they're going to have to find ways to manufacture production in the receiving game. So that's where you see a guy like a Miles Sanders or a Kenny Gainwell, or you have to find ways to get a Quez Watkins on some of these explosive downfield plays. You have to get creative and maximize your personnel, because not having Goddard is a tremendous blow.
Yeah, a big-time loss if he does not go. We don't have that information yet, although the Eagle injury report did come out today. Goddard was a DNP, did not participate because of a concussion. So he did take a big, vicious hit that we saw, and I would feel that it's pretty unlikely that he plays based on the hit that he took, and so far he has not participated in practice. And then it goes to the big question in this game is going to be the run game and how they kind of use these guys. But we saw last year Miles Sanders had a big run against the Saints defense, and he definitely adds another dimension to the offense's run game here. So do you anticipate that he gets the bulk of the carries? Is it going to be a 50-50? What's your read on that so far?
Well, you heard Nick Sirianni himself say that if Miles Sanders is active and ready to go, he's going to be their starter. And I would anticipate him seeing probably half to maybe 3/4 of the carries. But I would also add to that and say you can utilize Boston Scott and Jordan Howard situationally. You saw how the Eagles were so successful with a 3-headed rushing attack on their Super Bowl run. The Giants, when they had that earth, wind, and fire with Brandon Jacobs, Derek Ward, and Ahmad Bradshaw, like, it can work. But when you have a history of being a sporadically limited running team, when they had Miles Sanders, you start to wonder if there's going to be enough touches to go around. But yes, Miles Sanders is their home run hitter. If he's active, he's going to see the bulk of the carries. And you mentioned his explosive play last year against the Saints. That the plays like that are what he provides to an offense, and how it just is a game-changing play. And I mean, I think it behooves the Eagles to continue to try to run the football and establish that dominance at the line of scrimmage, because the offensive line is really their most proficient unit right now, and they're really firing on all cylinders.
All right, one spot that I think is interesting, and by the way, let's go back to this, Andrew. Jalen Hurts has faced the Saints before. He faced them last year and beat them. Now, he did not have a great passing day. I think he was under 50% in that game, but he did have over 100 yards rushing on the ground. And I'm wondering, is that a way, do the Eagles do some design runs for him, or do you anticipate that Hurts can have a big day on the ground again against this team?
Hurts is always going to be a threat to run the ball, no matter what the defense is. I think that he's going to find success doing so. I think he's doing a better job, particularly in the last couple of weeks, of picking his spots in which he's going to do that, and really seeing the whole field and working through his reads and hanging in the pocket a little bit more, which we haven't really seen. I think that's part of the growth that we've seen from Jalen. I do think that you're going to see him have to pick up yards with his legs, because, like I said, if Dallas Goedert can go this week, they really need to find a way to get the offense rolling, and They don't have a whole bunch of options really that they can lean on. But Jalen Hurts has been a consistent presence with his legs and able to generate yards. So I think that there's going to be some design runs to get him on the move.
All right, let's look at the other side in the Saints offense, which is led, of course, by Trevor Siemian. We'll probably see some Taysom Hill as well. But Kamara being back, it looks like he's going to play in the game. That really changes things. And I guess the first question would be, how do you figure out how to stop him? They've had problems, in the intermediate part of the field. I would imagine that Kamara might be the biggest nightmare matchup for them almost in the entire league.
Yeah, I mean, if he's fully healthy this week and not on a snap count, he's just a dynamic weapon that really presents a lot of matchup concerns for the Eagles, particularly on that second level. Obviously, we've seen much better production from the linebacker position with DJ Edwards and Davion Taylor. Davion Taylor revealed today that he was, working through a bone bruise. That's something to keep an eye on. I think he presents the best option as sort of tracking Kamara out of the backfield, giving his range, sideline-to-sideline ability, and just tackling pursuit. I think that he gives them their best option. But, I mean, regardless, he is going to be a significant piece of the puzzle in trying to stop the Saints, obviously. And Mark Ingram had a nice week last week. He scored a touchdown. His running style really fits the mold of players that give that Eagles defensive front issues. He's a tough downhill runner, and he can also catch the ball out of the backfield. So they have a nice two-headed rushing attack there.
Yeah, they do. And up front, let's take a look at their offensive line, because we all know, Andrew, for the Eagles defense to kind of be what they want to be, they got to win that battle up front. So the Eagles defensive front against the Saints offensive line, how's that matchup look for Sunday?
Well, a matchup I'm going to be watching in particular is how the interior of the Eagles defensive line of Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave are able to get after a young but very talented interior offensive line of the Saints, because they have a guy like Eric McCoy, who's a good center. They have Ruiz playing right guard, and they also have Calvin Throckmorton, who was an undrafted find for them last year out of Oregon, and he's playing left guard for them. That they've held up pretty well, but I think the experience and just the savvy of the defensive line in Fletcher Cox and Hargrave, I think they'll be able to really push the pocket there, and that's going to, if they're able to do so with regularity, that's going to, that right there is the key to the game, because Trevor Siemian is far from a world beater, but if you get a guy in his face like that up the middle, and he's not a mobile guy, yeah, he's gonna be prone to turnovers, and that's going to completely turn the tides in the Eagles' favor.
I think he was under 50% last week. I mean, he had a rotten week throwing the football. He ended up with 2 touchdowns and almost 300 yards. He had a couple big plays, but he was under 50%, I think, throwing the football, and is really not an accomplished passer. So you're right. If they can get that pressure up the middle, that's really going to be interesting. These two teams almost mirror each other. They both have one. The Eagles actually score more than the Saints do, 25-24 total yards. The Eagles actually get 30 more yards a game. It's yards allowed. They're very comparable. Saints 253, Eagles 353, Eagles 364. But it's really on how the Saints get the yards, and that's through the air. 280 yards. The Eagles give up all those yards in the air, 247. But you're saying, Siemian, that's where he's kind of weak. And the outside weapons aren't really there for the Saints. Without Michael Thomas, right, they don't have that big guy. So it'll be interesting to see how John Gannon, does he kind of use his defense similarly to the way he did against the Lions? Well,
that's the problem there, because unlike the Lions, who didn't have any offensive weapons on the outside, the Saints don't have a threatening in the sense that they have like a Michael Thomas, let's say, out there, but they do have 2 speed guys on the outside, and Marquez Callaway and Traquan Smith. They can quickly, beat. That can completely end the drive in one play if they get past the corners there. So I have a feeling that you're going to see a little bit more of a conservative approach, at least early on when they're filling the game out. But I mean, when you look at a quarterback like Trevor Siemian, if you can get some pressure on him and be more aggressive, I mean, he's completing only 57.7% of his passes. Obviously, he hasn't turned the ball over yet. He's thrown 5 touchdowns, has not turned the ball over yet. But I think if you can get some pressure on him, you can control the game. And if you're the Eagles, so I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how he finds that balance. Because while those weapons on the outside aren't necessarily, they're not going to wreck a game. They can certainly affect it on a given play with their speed. And then the tight ends, to me. Adam Troutman is more of a possession tight end. He's not overly explosive. Their move tight end, however, what's his name? Juwan Johnson. He was a former wide receiver at Penn State and Oregon. He's more of their move tight end. He has 9 catches, 3 touchdowns on the season, and he's someone that can work the seams a little bit, and I think that he can play a factor on that second level and taking advantage of the Eagles' safeties.
Yeah, you mentioned Troutman. He's going to be interesting. Is he going to be the kind of guy that just gets a lot of catches? The Eagles just let him catch the ball, and then they try to make the tackles, which is something that adding T.J. Edwards to the defense has kind of done. It has given them a much better tackler, and Davion Taylor has given them, much better athleticism at that position. He's not always in the right place, but if Troutman catches the ball, he'll be fast enough to get there and make a tackle. So it'll be interesting to see if the Saints, and I would imagine they do this, Andrew, try to exploit Taylor and Edwards and how that matchup will work out.
Oh, I would anticipate that being their plan of attack this week. I mean that'd be a sound tactical approach if you're the Saints. I mean, the Eagles linebackers, the units looked a lot better since they've inserted T.J. Edwards and Davion Taylor, a much more physical element to that passive defense. But they can be taken advantage of in the passing game, and you've seen that at certain teams have really found success going after them, and I would expect them to pepper their sides of the field with Adam Troutman and find a way to get Juwan Johnson on the move, who can threaten them a little bit more vertically. He's a little bit more of a vertical option than Adam Troutman is. And then, of course, their running backs. I mean, if Kamara plays, he's going to be the X factor, of course, and someone that you have to account for no matter where he goes. So they do have some guys there that can alter the course of the game, so they need to be mindful of that. But that second level should be the area that the Saints attack if you're Sean Payton.
All right, Andrew, you wrote about Marcus Epps, and I'm noticing that it seems that he's getting some more playing time there. And just kind of talk a little bit about what the Eagles may have found with Marcus Epps.
Yeah, Marcus Epps, I mean, he's someone that was much maligned by the Eagles fan base. Obviously, he gave up that 36-yarder to DK Metcalf in that wild card game, and he got hurdled by Brandon Ayuk on Sunday Night Football. But there's something to be said for the fact that 2 defensive coordinators like him as a capable substitute, right? I mean, Jim Schwartz really found a way to insert him in on defense and sub packages, and now you're seeing Jonathan Gannon find a way to sort of work him in along. Obviously, Anthony Harris still played 84% of the snaps, but you're starting to see him take away some of his snaps. And I think that his versatility, his football acumen, and just his sound technique. He's not a rangy safety. He's not a overly quick safety. And he doesn't have the prototypical size, but I think he makes up for it with his football IQ and his versatility. And I think he's been able to endear himself to Jonathan Gannon. And I mean, even look at the Chargers game. I mean, they used Andre Sacheret was the first guy to come in place of Maddox. And then you saw Epps come in because I think that Jonathan Gannon really likes his versatility and ability to play slot, safety, defend the run. He's just a sound player, not overly flashy, but he's a player that really can contribute and could be a piece of their long-term future.
Andrew DiCecco, football at 4, Eagles and Saints this Sunday. You can hear it live on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Andrew, when it's all said and done, what is the X factor in this game, and who wins this game?
To me, the X factor is going to be in the trenches. It's going to be Fletcher Cox and Hargrave versus the youth but upside in that interior for the Saints. And I think, you have to like the veteran presence of Javon Hargrave and Fletcher Cox to win that matchup, getting in Trevor Siemian's face, moving him off his spot, not allowing him to step up, and forcing some mistakes.
All right, and this is a big one. I mean, if the Saints win this game, that gets them to 6, keeps them with pace with Tampa Bay, so they need this win. They're still alive in that division. And if the Eagles win this game, that gets them to 5, and depending on what happens around them this weekend, 5 might even have them in the 7th seed by the end of the weekend. So, big game. Who do you like?
I like the Eagles in this game. I think they're going to carry the momentum from last week. I think that the message that Nick Sirianni is delivering to his team is being received. I think everyone's bought in, and I think they're going to kind of ride the wave here and take the Saints. I think the Saints might take them to the wire. I think it'll be a close game, but I think the Eagles win this game 27-24.
Well, I needed to pick up Elliott for my fantasy this week because my kicker's on a bye, so hopefully he has a nice game-winning 58-yarder to give me 8 points in my fantasy league. There we go. That's a big one there this weekend in Philadelphia. Eagles Saints, listen live on 97.3 ESPN. Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. Check out his work over at InsideTheBirds.com. Andrew, thank you, my friend.
You bet. Talk to you soon.